Yugoloths have a society of castes, like devils, although they hate the comparison. Although Yugoloths are neutral creatures, their hierarchy is very lawful. If anything, it's even more lawful than devils, because while devils can skip ranks if they display exceptional skill, Yugoloths must work through every single station in their exact order. The only bit of chaos I could spot in their society is that their hierarchy isn't always in ascending order of raw strength. What I mean is, Yugoloths are above Mezzoloths in the hierarchy, but physically speaking, Yugoloths are weaker than Mezzoloths. A Mezzoloth could fight and kill a Yugoloth if it wanted to. In fact, it has to try this in order to land a shot at promotion. This power imbalance is built into their culture. Yagnoloths are lazy and pathetic, yet they are the lords of the Yugoloth fiefdoms and are allowed to issue orders to those higher than them in status. Command doesn't always mean physical power, and this idea is hammered into the heads of all Yugoloths. Before we get started, I'd just like to let you know that this video is specifically on the hierarchy and caste system of the Yugoloths, but if you want to know everything else there is to know about Yugoloths, and there's a lot, check out my other video that's just titled Yugoloths D&D Lore Through the Editions. This video assumes you've seen that video, so I might make references to it, and if you haven't seen it, you might be a little confused. So first, let's discuss their creation. You gotta start at the bottom, but where does the bottom come from? How do they replenish their ranks? How are Yugoloths initially made? Chaotic evil souls that wind up in the abyss become demons. Lawful evil souls that get damned to the 9 hells are turned into devils. But Yugoloths do not arise from petitioners. Some say this is because when they ridded themselves of law and chaos, draining 2 ethical extremes from their spirit with the heart of darkness, it destroyed their living spark, preventing them from creating new Yugoloths from soul larvae. They gain their power directly from their planes of power, Gehenna, their new home, and Hades, their ancient birthplace. They say whenever a Yugoloth dies, another is reborn, spat out as a Mezzoloth either near the Wasting Tower on Hades or the Tower of Arcanoloths on Gehenna. They say these 2 towers, and possibly a third that's been kept secret, focus the evil energies of the lower planes and harness it for the Yugoloths, ensuring there are always at least a certain number of Yugoloths at any time. This maintains their current population, but the only way to increase it is to breed naturally. So let's move to the hierarchy. Now, 2nd edition is really the only edition that goes in depth on the Yugoloth hierarchy. 1st edition has them organized by lesser and greater Yugoloths, but it doesn't specify the rankings within these categories, like which is above which, and it doesn't really state what role each type of daemon fulfills within the society. 3rd and 5th edition don't even have the lesser and greater classifications, just a brief description of what role they fulfill, and that's it. Because of that, 90% of the information from this section will be from 2nd edition, and I will be using the hierarchy from that edition to structure this part. If I don't specify what edition a piece of information is from, it means it's from 2nd edition. If another edition says something different, I will specify, but if I don't mention info from a specific edition, it means that it either said the same thing as 2nd edition, or it said nothing at all. So at the bottom of the hierarchy are what's called Yugoloth Creations. These are beings artificially created by Yugoloths for a specific purpose, and they don't really exist within the hierarchy or count as true members of the race. You have Canoloths. These are the dogs of the race, serving as lackeys and summoning stock. In 3rd and 5th edition, they acted as guardians and bodyguards. 3rd edition also says that they served as scouts and skirmishers and the Yugoloth armies. They are believed to be Mezzoloths stripped of their power and transformed into faithful servants. You also have Guardian Yugoloths. They adhere to the letter of the binding, not the spirit. They take many forms, none of which mirror the reality of Yugoloths. Powerful Yugoloths created the Guardian Yugoloths and the Canoloths to answer the call of mortals dumb enough to attempt summoning a Yugoloth without knowing their true name. Anytime you summon a Yugoloth, but you're not specifically calling a certain one with their true name, you will get a Canoloth or a Guardian Yugoloth. 3rd edition added a few more Yugoloth creations. The Scaroloth, which, like the Canoloth, is a form of punishment. They are cowardly, pathetic creatures that serve as spies and infiltrators, and sometimes are used as cannon fodder for their armies. The Battleloths, creatures created specifically for battle, and the Vor, hulking brutes bred for specific tasks, usually acting as guardians, protectors, bodyguards, and enforcers. Now we have the lesser Yugoloths, and at the bottom of the chain are the Mezzoloths, the most plentiful of the race, and they act as the foot soldiers of their armies. They are tough, but dumber than the average human. Mezzoloths are the basic tools of the Yugoloths, deployed when subtlety and guile have been exhausted, when direct action is what is needed. According to 5th edition, their main motivations are violence and rewards, so a powerful being that offers one or the other can easily gain their service. In 1st edition, they were described as exceptionally intelligent and freely associating with night hags and demons, and sometimes devils, but found their strict regulations tiresome. Next is the Yugoloths. They also serve as mercenaries and foot soldiers, and they're quite good at it. They have 4 arms, and their torso, legs, and head can all spin independently very quickly. It is said that this shape is a form of harsh punishment, being stripped of all the knowledge it has accumulated. 5th edition says that they are usually contracted to squelch uprisings, clear out rabble, and eliminate scouts and skirmishers. They are dumb brutes that can handle simple, quick tasks, but will inevitably bungle any complex orders. Above the Yugoloths are the Piscoloths. These are the sergeants of the Mezzoloths and Yugoloths, keeping those 2 brutish lower ranks in check. They are hated by those they command and are the Yugoloth rank most often emptied and replaced, as the Mezzoloths and Yugoloths lash out and kill them, while higher ranking Yugoloths keep their struggles more subtle. In 1st edition, they are described as acting subservient to more powerful daemons, while bullying and sadistic to all creatures weaker than themselves. They are oftentimes summoned to the prime material plane as labor or guards, however they are resentful of these tasks and plot to overthrow and enslave their masters. After the Piscoloths, you have the Hydroloths, the scouts and guides of the Yugoloth forces. They are immune to the memory-stealing effects of the river Styx and are great swimmers, making them very effective in the Blood War. This is the first rank that trades in information rather than pure muscle. They constantly strive to be promoted to the next station so that they can stand back from the carnage of the war. 1st edition says they are often sent to serve evil on the prime material plane. 5th edition says that they can steal memories from creatures, similar to the river Styx they inhabit, and deliver these thoughts to their masters. They are skilled at finding lost things, especially ones that have been swallowed up by the deep. After Hydroloths are the Yagnoloths. These are the lords of the fiendish race. They rule over Yugoloth lands by order of the Ultraloths, marshal the armies of their fiefs, and guard Gehenna and Hades against invaders. That is, when they can be bothered. They prefer to do as little as possible, living off the labor of their inferiors. However, the Ultraloths grant them judiciary powers. They are able to command any Yugoloth in their domain up to the rank of Arcanoloth. Why do the Ultraloths allow these lazy beings so much power? Because they serve as reminders of how easily a small being can be made to seem large, and how even a petty creature could bring down its betters if given enough power. They are the butt of the jokes in the ranks above them, and the most hated in the ranks below. Because they are so hated, they cannot summon other Yugoloths to aid them in battle, the only rank that is incapable of doing this. Oddly, their description in 5th edition is quite different. It still says that they take orders from Ultraloths and Arcanoloths, and have power over lesser Yugoloths under their command, but it never explicitly states anything about them being lords over fiefs. It also says that they are skilled negotiators, and anyone who enters into contracts with Yugoloths usually ends up dealing with a Yagnoloth, a job that is usually held by Arcanoloths in all other editions, including 5th edition. You could explain this away as, since you're hiring out an army, these armies are normally under the rule of Yagnoloth lords, so you're sort of negotiating with him for his armies, maybe, but I feel like that would normally be something an Arcanoloth would do. Something I found interesting about them is that in 1st edition, they have an ability drain, where over the course of 5 rounds, they devour 10 to 100% of the victim's abilities. Abilities include experience points, hit points, psionic abilities, and ability scores. In 2nd edition, it does the same thing, but it has to be an unconscious target, and you can regain all of your abilities lost if you slay the Yagnoloth within 1 day, otherwise they need a restoration spell. In 3rd edition, they drain 1d4 levels from their target. After the Yugoloths are the Mercenary, the highest of the lesser Yugoloths, an in-between middle ground between lesser and greater. They are the ferrymen of the River Styx and considered the most neutral of the neutral evil fiends. They take no interest in helping one side over the other in the Blood War. They simply ferry creatures along the lower planes for the right price. The price is 1 magic item, 10 platinum pieces, or 2 gems worth 50 gold pieces or more each. But there is a 15% chance it will betray its summoner, either by taking them to the incorrect location, 85% chance, or leading them to an ambush with a 15% chance. The ambush consisted of Chironodemons and Hydrodemons in 1st edition, an ambush paid for by a third party in 3rd edition, and isn't specified in 2nd edition. The chance of betrayal can be reduced by 5% per additional payment of the same amount. Mercenary learn the value of material wealth, payment for their services, and the twisting patterns of thought mastered by the greater Yugoloths as embodied in the Styx. They memorize every bend and swirl of the River Styx and see it echoed in the multiverse around them. And as ferrymen of the fiendish armies, they have learned the rudiments of making and breaking contracts. All Mercenary are telepathically linked, so if you piss one off, such as by attacking it, it will immediately notify all others of its kind, and none will do service with you until you have made a suitable sacrifice and repentance, which should include rare stones, magic, and the sacrifice of a good, intelligent being, and be conducted in a desecrated temple of good. 5th edition says that Mercenary sometimes accept work captaining other ships outside the lower planes. When they do, they bond with the vehicle and then are capable of navigating through the worst storms. They never go off course and never make any mistakes. As you know, in 1st edition, Yugoloths were called daemons. Because of this, all of their types were also called daemons. So instead of a Yugoloth, you have a Nycadaemon. Instead of an Arcanoloth, you have an Arcanodaemon, etc. Mercenary were called Chironodemons because there was a single individual named Charon, as in the Greek mythological ferryman of the underworld. He was the main ferryman, and then the other daemons of his kind that served him were named the Chironodemons. He was more difficult to summon than the Chironodemons, and he cost 10 times as much. So 2 magic items, 100 platinum pieces, or 2 gems worth 500 gold pieces, but he had no chance of betrayal and could hold up to 10 passengers. Now we move on to the Greater Yugoloths. This trio of Greater Yugoloths make the policies and steer the trajectory of the race's path to ascendance. The Lesser Yugoloths are simply tools used to bring this goal to fruition. The least of the Greater Yugoloths are the Yugoloths. They're the observers and scouts of the Blood War, watching battlefields and passing on their intel straight to the Arcanoloths. The Arcanoloths use this info to determine where to allot the Yugoloth strength, which allows the Ultraloths to plot the course to victory. Yugoloths had a 20% chance of carrying Vorpal axes. 1st edition says that they always act in an intelligent and carefully calculated manner aimed at maximizing personal power and safety. They love exploiting and enslaving others and are avoided by all weaker creatures. While they are scouts in 2nd edition, they are elite flying shock troopers in 3rd and 5th. 5th edition also says they are the most loyal of all Yugoloths, being unlikely to break an agreement with a master that treats them well, unless the reward for doing so is extreme. After Yugoloths are the Arcanoloths. They keep the contracts of the Blood War, assigning armies to the tanar'ri and Batazu. They decide where these armies will go and how much they will cost. Of course, this isn't all their decision making, and they are taking orders directly from the Ultraloths. 3rd and 5th edition describes them as the scribes, record keepers, negotiators, and deal makers for the Yugoloths, although 3rd edition specifies that they do this only for the Yugoloths of Gehenna. They are able to speak and write any language. After Arcanoloths are the Ultraloths. The highest ranking members of the Yugoloth race, they act as generals of the Yugoloth armies. They watch the vast sweep of battles and determine when the mercenaries should betray one side or the other. They are some of the most feared creatures in the multiverse. While they might not be the strongest creatures in the outer planes, few have more influence and connections, and fewer still can hide their knowledge from them. The most effective weapon the Ultraloths have is their reputation. No fool in his right mind would dare to cross them. In the eons it takes for a Yugoloth to promote all the way to Ultraloth, they have amassed great knowledge and have learned to weave its webs far and wide. Their contacts span the entire multiverse, and many fear them on the basis of their knowledge alone. The forces an Ultraloth can bring to bear on a foe can be as mild as a message and as mighty as the destruction of a planet. First edition says that some Ultraloths have mastered the arts of summoning, such that they may summon creatures from other planes, including the prime material plane. Now, above the greater Yugoloths and above the Ultraloths, you have a couple specific titles and creatures that rank even above them in the hierarchy. The first is the Yugoloth. The Yugoloth changes quite a bit between editions, so let's take this one at a time. In first edition, the strongest daemon and the ruler of all of them is the Oinodaemon. That's what the Yugoloth was called in first edition. So the Oinodaemon is a title that in first edition is held by Anthraxis the Decayed. He has a unique form like that of no other daemon, appearing as a tall man in a rotting gray suit and cape. His head is that of a ram deformed by disease, his mouth foams, and the wool pulls away from the skin in handfuls. There are boils and blisters over his exposed skin, and his flesh is pulled taut over his bones. Anthraxis holds the title of Oinodaemon in first edition, however other unique demonic beings challenge this position, including Bubonus, which is how it's spelled in Fiend Folio, but then it's spelled Bubonix with an X in Dragon Annual number 2. That one sounds better and sounds closer to the disease it's mimicking, so I'm going to go with that one. Cholerix, Typhus, and Diphtherius, along with others unknown or unrecorded by scholars. In second edition, the Yugoloth is the nominal leader of the Yugoloth race, commanding the entire race from Kin Oin, the dreaded wasting tower of Oinos, which is the first layer of the Grey Waste, from a throne called the Siege Malicious. Like first edition, this is not a unique type of Yugoloth, but merely a title, a position that can only be held by one Yugoloth at a time. In first edition, the one who held it, Anthraxis, did have a unique form like no other Yugoloth, but in second edition, it is a normal-looking Ultraloth named Midion Claris who overthrew Anthraxis. While the Yugoloth is the nominal leader of the Yugoloths in second edition, he takes orders from a position above him, the General of Gehenna. But in first edition, the General doesn't exist and the Oinodaemon is in charge of all Yugoloths. The Yugoloth is said to guide the race and unify the warring factions, to present a determined Yugoloth face to the outside world. Third edition keeps similar lore as second edition. Yugoloth is a title held by whoever controls Kin Oin and the Wasting Tower, and is currently held by the Ultraloth Midion Claris. The Yugoloth commands all disease on Oinos, creating, modifying, and nullifying diseases of Oinos as they see fit. Anyone who can kill the Yugoloth and take the throne becomes the next Yugoloth. In 5th edition, the Yugoloth has been altered significantly. So Yugoloth is no longer a title held by a single Yugoloth, but it is now a distinct species of Yugoloths. Just like how, you have Nikoloths and you have Mesoloths, you now have Yugoloths. 5th edition doesn't discuss the hierarchy on Yugoloths, so there's no indication at where in the cast it stands, but based on its description and stat block, it would most likely be a greater Yugoloth. Yugoloths in 5th edition are grotesque beings of illness employed as desperate measures in prolonged sieges or against formidable armies. They spread disease across the battleground, causing widespread affliction. They can be hired to remove the plagues they create, but these services come at a very steep cost. The artwork of the Yugoloth in 5th edition looks basically exactly how Anthraxis looks from 1st edition. Next, we have the General of Gehenna. The biggest, baddest, and strongest of the Yugoloths, the most powerful of the Ultraloths. In 2nd edition, it is similar to the Yugoloth, a leader of the Yugoloths. The General is above even the Yugoloth, and the Yugoloth issues decrees to the Yugoloth race straight from the General. Whether the General is real or simply a legend the Yugoloth ensures lives on, nobody knows for sure. Some say the General is a returned Bernoloth, a keeper of all fiendish knowledge, the most fearsome creature in the multiverse, a god slayer. There's lots of stories out there. Whatever the case is, all Yugoloths respect and fear the General, and his sway is enough to unite the entire race to one singular goal. Among the Yugoloths, that kind of respect is true power. In 3rd edition, the General of Gehenna is once again the ruler of all Yugoloths, ruling from the Crawling City, a giant city with thousands of fiendish legs that move across Gehenna. In 5th edition, the General of Gehenna is still said to be the most powerful Ultraloth. Many search for the general in hope of serving him because they believe that doing so grants them power and prestige among lower planar entities. However, no one finds the general unless the general desires it. Now, we must talk about the Bernaloths. These legendary creatures that many don't believe exist are said to have created the Yugoloths. They exist at the top of the Yugoloth hierarchy, above even the general of Gehenna. 2nd edition says that in the beginning of the planes, when primal forces of good, evil, law, and chaos battled, the force of evil created the Bernaloths, and that the Bernaloths set the course that evil as a force must take to overwhelm its primal enemy, and then left the actual details to their underlings, the Yugoloths, as they vanished into the gray wastes of Hades. 5th edition keeps this story while positing that they could have come from a time before the current manifestations of the planes. Some say only the Ultraloths know where to find a Bernaloth, that many Ultraloths go searching for them to make deals and learn the secrets of power. A few find them, most don't, and some of them never return. Some scholars claim to have met a Bernaloth and that it denied creating the Yugoloths, but admitted to offering advice to worthy Ultraloths, such as the General of Gehenna. Some say that Apoms, creator of the Yugoloths, is a Bernaloth. 3rd edition states that the Oberith demons and the ancient Proto-Beatorians were creations of the Bernaloths as well. Who knows which stories are true, but we do know that the Bernaloths are ancient beings of pure evil. They know almost everything about all fiends and lower planar creatures, and if they didn't create them, they possess secret knowledge regarding their existence. Yugoloths are the mercenaries of the Blood War. So how are their armies organized? Most companies consist of hundreds of Mesoloths, scores of Yugoloths, and a handful of Piscoloths to keep the troops in line. Less common companies are the bands of 100 Hydroloths, with one Hydroloth, usually one slated for the next promotion, acting as their leader. Then you have the real exceptions, the elite companies. One example is the Brigade of Darkness, which was founded by the current General of Gehenna and is still under his control. He has put the Yugoloth captain, Zel Dogears, in charge of it. The Brigade of Darkness takes the view that a combination of talent is the best chance for success, and consists of 10 of each type of lesser Yugoloth, except Yagnoloths. It specializes in stealth and secrecy. The Mesoloths, Yugoloths, and Piscoloths are remarkable in close quarters combat, the Hydroloths excel in aquatic matters, and the Marinoloths can pilot the group wherever they need to go. Now let's talk about their promotion. How do they get promoted and what is the process like? So, a demon can transform itself into whatever form it has in mind, as long as it has the confidence and willpower to believe it deserves it. A devil must be promoted by a superior, but can skip ranks for good performance and be demoted for bad performance. A Yugoloth walks the straightest path, having to spend time in every single form in the correct order. In order to promote, a Yugoloth must have done 3 things. Just like devils, each rank has a lesson that they must learn before promoting to the next. For example, once a Mesoloth realizes it can defeat a Yugoloth superior in battle, it has learned that command doesn't always mean physical power, and it gets a shot at promotion. In addition to learning the lesson of its rank, they must have served well in its current rank with no screw-ups, and they must believe in the purity of evil and the necessity of evil's triumph. The time a Yugoloth spends in one station before promoting to the next is at least several centuries, but oftentimes millennia. The promotion follows this pattern. A Yugoloth shows their immediate superiors what a great job they are doing at being a Yugoloth. So, manipulating others and ensuring that pure evil triumphs. Then petitions them for a review and demonstrates its intellect and skill, which can take years, decades, or even centuries depending on how quickly the superiors want to proceed. If their superior is impressed, they suggest the promotion to their superiors. These superiors pepper the candidate with questions and challenges. If they fail, they are destroyed in the furnaces of Gehenna, and the Loths who recommended that candidate have their skin flayed and are exiled for a time. Because of these harsh consequences, a candidate really needs to be sure they are ready, and their superiors must be extremely confident they are worthy before recommending them. If the candidate is deemed worthy, they go through the process of purification. This extraordinarily painful process strips the living shell of the Yugoloth's form. It purges their minds of all its faults it has accumulated in life while still keeping the useful lessons. The ritual is said to be so horrific it would give Balor's nightmares. That is the hierarchy of the Yugoloths throughout all 5 editions of D&D. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if I got anything wrong or missed anything cool that you would have liked to see mentioned. And remember to subscribe to my channel for more D&D related content.